Welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. Hello, everybody. My name is Bub, aka Bub, and we're here at the No Face Comic Chat with a new scheduled time slot. This will be our ongoing time slot, and there you go. So, so I hope you all appreciate that. I hope you're excited as I am to welcome our very special panel this evening. You've never seen these people before until you saw them here. Well, that's not true. DS and Roger. Hey, DS, welcome back. Woohoo!
Awesome to be back. I'll tell you, I try to watch some of these on the replay, but I miss most everything that's on YouTube these days. I can tell you the two things I've noticed that changed are the intro is way too long and you're a little older, and that's about it. So I'm glad to be back and help this show get back on track, Bub.
Well, my knuckle hair's got a little grayer, but other than that, I don't think anybody can tell.
No, it's awesome, dude. I'm so excited. Like this, when the schedule changed and I wasn't able to make it anymore at that time on this day, we're thinking a month, 2 months, like it's just never ending. So, yeah, I'm falling into a deep pit of despair and depression as this goes on, and I can't be with you guys to do this show, and that's no joke. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to be back. I've been waiting all week to get on here in the new time. It works perfect for me. So yeah, awesome. So glad to be here. Broke out one of my new books, which is obviously a DS book because this is my image and icon that I use. So yeah, I figured I would show this, and I got some other slabs I'll just switch out during the show. And yeah, awesome. I don't even know what the topic is. I'm not prepared for anything. I'm just here, and I'm excited, and that's it.
Oh, that's fine. We don't really. It's not a real big one anyway. I just really wanted to get back to normal, have everybody back on like we used to. I also want to take a minute to thank everyone who was kind of more or less filling in. We often had a fourth guest, which is really nice. And I enjoy the extra people talking and the extra conversation, especially when we get to dive in a little bit more with some other community members. But it's really, that was always a fourth guest, so it's always nice to have the three of us in here, get the show kind of back on track. And have us all together again. I miss this as much as I've enjoyed all of our guests and everyone that's been here, and I really hope to have them all again so that they've get the opportunity to be salted upon by DS. So they don't get that with us. You're that. I think Roger's the sweet, I'm the savory, of course, and you're the salty, and we were missing that salty component.
Okay, yeah, so, I might. Go ahead and agree to disagree on that. But,
I forgot how sweet you were.
I feel my place, me subjectively, I feel like, yes, Roger is the sweet, you are the salty, and I am in the middle where they mix, and I try to make them mix comfortably and without a lot of ripples. And I'll bounce back and forth, but yeah, you can be interesting. That's cool. It's my first.
No, that's fine. No. You go ahead. Because only a true salty person would call someone else that salty, even after they said they were savory. I got you. Don't worry about it. Hey, Roger. Hey, we got to talk to Roger. Roger, welcome to the show. Thank you for always being here, unlike some people. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. And that little, back and forth between you two is exactly why I love DS to the apex, because I can actually breathe now. I mean, I don't have to be taking all these barbs and all these, everything's not directed just at me from Bub. There's DS to take, some of the load off. And I couldn't be happy. Of course, I don't mean this Bub in a derogatory way. All I'm saying is that
too late.
DS has a very, I agree with DS on this one, Bub. He has a very moderating tone about him. He is unbiased. He is logical. When he tells you something, it is what he really believes and nothing else. And that's something that's very refreshing in today's society. So I missed him to death. I know I would text him here and there just to see how he's doing and see if I could coax him to come back, and pray that he did. And my prayers have been answered.
Yes, I'm very happy to have him back. I'll ignore all the mean stuff you said about me and just say
no mean
thank you, Diaz, for returning to our thanks for being back. Thank you to all the subscribers who endured Roger during these past few months, seeing as how he obviously had to do double duty and talk so much. I know he hates that. So thanks for sticking around. Speaking of all you fine folks, we got Unruly Simeon in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Simon R. is here. That old comic smell. The Jackson Roy Kirk. And Jambo Comics is here. He was one of our go-tos. He doesn't do anything. Like, he's sitting around all day long, got nothing to do. No, that's not true, actually. He works a lot. But he was always willing to chip in and help out and fill in. And let's see, we got Gretzky 9966 also was a guest on the show. Thank you. Area 51 Mike is in the house. I was worried that he wouldn't be able to make the new time slot, so very glad. Thank you to all of you for coming over to the new slot. It feels like an old slot already, doesn't it, everybody? All right, we got from heroes to icons here. James Gallegos here as always. And Metarog guy, we can't shake that guy. Steve at I Love Disney and Comics is here. Thank you. Samuel David is here. Rob Boswell is here as well. Thank goodness we never got so deep to the bottom of the barrel that we had to have that Joker on the panel. Holy cow. That would have been rough. No, good stuff. Pope Cerebus the Fourth is here because the second couldn't make it. Ken Titus is here. Thank you for being here. Konnichiwa and all of the good stuff you say. And domo morigato, Mr. Roboto. Next we have, who else is it? Is that everybody? Did I get everybody? The Gray Man is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bill over at Comic Mags Musing, who likes to leave little snarky remarks on all my videos. And I just say, glad you're watching. We got TK's Batcave. He come in for an episode. Did we have TK on here? I don't think we didn't get to him, did we?
No, I don't think we have.
I meant to have him on here, and then I came to my senses. And then we have no, he's a good guy, but really I was gonna he was on the list. Ruben Guzman is in the house. Kawabunga fam. Let's see, what do we got here? I think that's I'm gonna let you have that one there. What do we got, Roger? Mabuse cast? Mabuse
cast. Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna take that.
Like, is that a Dr. Mabuse picture?
I would assume so. So who's Dr. Mabuse there, DS?
Well,
show us what we've been missing.
Is in the 1920s and 30s in noir film, pretty much the top two, I would think, in that genre were American films, and then the darker, sketchier counterpart was the German films. Most well known probably is Fritz Lang. So the German noir stuff and the horror stuff from the 30s. There was a Dr. Mabuse series of noir horror movies that were German. So I think maybe that's where the reference comes from.
I'm going to go ahead and say you're right, even without any further evidence. And boy, am I glad to have you back on the show.
Yeah, there you go.
We got J Hood Creative is here. I would agree with the J. I would agree with the Hood, but I just don't know how creative he is. Chris Barrett's in the chat. Thank you. We can start the show now. I think we had Unruly. Let's see. Chris Barrett. Boy, Chris Barrett's chatty tonight. I think that's Rob Boswell. I think we're caught up. I think we've got everybody. Welcome, welcome. Somebody said, hey, Kenny, and I didn't see a Kenny in here. So, Comic Cat 84 is here, and Novamad's here as well. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you all swinging over to the new time slot, and thank you all. It really means a lot to me. I checked the chat on the live chat at what would be 7 o'clock Eastern, just to see if anybody showed up and was like, hey, where's the show? What happened? But so much to my surprise, no one was clamoring and waiting in the wings. Chad Fisher's in the house. What's going on, Fish Cat? Good to have you. And Hack is here as well. What's up, Hack? Some good old buddies here showing up and showing us some love. So thank you, everybody, for being here. What do you say, guys? We get started with the show. We're pretty close to the show. So what we're going to do first is, I'm sure many of you know, we lost a great member of the community this past weekend, just a few days ago, just a couple of days ago even. Edwin the Comic Jabroni is no longer with us. There's been a lot of streams about sharing memories with him and what a great guy he was. I concur with all of that, of course, and I have my own memories with him. I'm not going to go through all those tonight. But you know, great guy, great member of the community, and to say nothing else, he will most certainly be missed. So if we can, I'm going to mute everybody and take about a 10-second moment of silence in his honor. And you know that's hard for me. So I hope you guys appreciate how quiet I'll be for a few seconds and just to honor him. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for participating in that. And, you know, of course, all love and prayers to his family and the people that were closest to him. We're going to go on with the show. Metarog, are you showing now? You're showing some Wallywood and some Turtle Love. So what have you got showing up on display today?
Yeah, I figured we start the Turtles because I figured, you know, we talk about a little bit about Jabroni and just what a special guy he was. And he, you know, we know his journey and his quest for that Turtles #1, and he got it. You know, he had those mystery boxes. He was very focused. And he loved that team. He loved that series. He loved those characters along with the Power Rangers and working out and wrestling. And you know, when I got the news, I didn't believe it because you know, talk about somebody who was full of life. That was Edwin, right? I mean, you couldn't ask for a better person to be in the community with than him. And when we're talking about team, we're talking about the 4 horsemen that he was with Perry and Rod and John. So, you know, I think it's appropriate that the topic is what makes a great team. And I look to them and us as great teams. But Jabroni, love you, buddy, and miss you. I can't even imagine what your family's going through, but know that this community is 100% behind that family and the situation. So onward and upward. You know, I know that he would want us to keep going, to share the love and share the joy that he gave to us through his videos and through his presence.
Absolutely.
So
I think the best thing we can do is be all about comics, share the comics. Even, you know, we've had a couple of people here this weekend, you know, it's affected very, very hard. And of course, this whole year has affected people harshly. So, you know, the one thing that brings us together, that we've come to find in each of us, that commonality between us, is comics. And that's the thing that has brought us together. That's the thing that more or less keeps us together. And that'll be the thing that you know, carries us on. So
true enough.
Glad we could be here tonight to have the show. Thank you for showing those books. Now the Wallywood's got to be for me. Is that right?
Yeah, that's for you.
Yeah,
that's for you.
See, he doesn't completely go. It's been a year.
You know, because we're talking about different types of teams, and boy, you know, it's just
wait,
like
are we?
Yeah.
Hold on, are we?
What makes a great team?
Wait, hold on, DS. What's our team name tonight?
I don't know. I told you I was so excited. I don't even know. But if you tell me what it is, I will be sure to knock it for you right here, so we can get back to
I appreciate that. I'll let Roger pretend to butcher it, even though he probably knows it by heart. Go ahead, Roger.
Well, it's the old new team, right? The old new team. Is that right?
That's right. See, I knew it. He can hear it in his voice. He's like, I don't want to appear to be a know-it-all, so I'll just I'll stumble through the first few syllables, and then I'll pick up the other, and then I'll leave it with a hanging question that I could be wrong. I've been wrong twice in my life. This could be a third.
Oh,
I see how you do it. I'm hip to your game, Roger.
Well,
yeah. Now I remember reading that name and thinking to myself, man, I think Bub just combo plagiarized X-Men 100 and X-Men 94. So
that could be.
Man. That was all new, all different, though. That was
all new, all different. And then the X-Men 100 was old team versus the new team. And I feel
that's right. That's right. I have that one.
He put them together and sort of did a combo plagiarism, which is cool. I'm down with it.
Hey, I got to give Bub a lot more credit then. I thought this was just something off the cuff. He actually, he went to another level to find something to rip off. So,
I tell you what,
kudos to you.
You're both right. It was a whole nother level. It was deep and thoughtful, but it also came quickly. So, you can both
email
be right.
was early today, so.
Yeah, I was pumping it out early. Hey, Splash Page in the house, and good old Donnie's in the house as well.
Hey,
good to have you guys.
And house too.
I think I got it out early because Discovery Bay had been doing he switched his time slot from like in Eastern time 12:30 to like 10:30 when he's putting out his who's going on today video, right?
Oh yeah.
And so last week I got it in. I didn't know he had switched times, and I got it in right under the buzzer, and he didn't count it. So I was like, well, this week I better get it done like 9:30 in the morning. I'm gonna try and have it to him a whole hour ahead of time. So I got it ready. I posted it, and then I sent him a comment on Instagram, and I said, hey man, just so you know, please, if you're gonna mention the show, please remember to mention that our new time slot. And he's like, man, I'm not even doing the show today. My back's killing me. I was like, oh, are you serious? I couldn't believe it.
Oh man, best laid plans, I tell you.
Oh, just wasn't going to work. But anyway, but hopefully his back's feeling better. So we'll get with that. Looks like we had what did I see? Southern Comic Geek show up. Did he show up?
Jason's in
there. Hey, what's going on, brother? Good to have you. So we are discussing, and House to the Ends here as well. Thank you. So we are discussing teams today. What makes a great team? So of course, the easy. I'm since I get to go first, I'm going to choose the two easiest great teams, right? So we have the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. And I love these two teams to start off with because, first of all, they're fantastically created teams, I think. Whoa, look at that. Oh, my camera's getting sleepy. They're fantastically created teams in that they are nothing alike to me. To me, they're polar opposites. Mm-hmm. So you have the Fantastic Four who were already friends and already teammates of sorts and family before gaining their powers and being forced to work together. But they already worked together. They were already a team, right? Brought together by life, and now they're cemented together with these powers. And then you have the opposite of that, which is a bunch of people that come from all different walks of life, right? And then have very different abilities, all acquired differently, and then have to work together. And I think that they're two very different teams, and I love them equally. So I'm start off with that. So I think one thing that makes a good team is kind of like, they say you should marry your best friend, right? So, and in some states, it doesn't even matter if that's a male or female, but you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Some people think you should marry your best friend, and then some people say opposites attract. And that to me is what these two teams represent. Two good ways to start a team, the relationship before the team forms. So go ahead, Roger. Knock me up. Beat me up. Don't knock me up.
No.
Don't knock me up. I already eat for 2. I can't start eating for 3.
Kentucky's not one of those states, so.
It is. Wow, it might be.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
I haven't checked on the paperwork.
It's a complicated issue. Yeah, I agree. That's a pretty good comparison, I'd say. I'll go even to a different level and say that, remember, what makes a great team also depends on their objectives, right? If you had a team of doctors that, were going to try to run a marathon, probably you're not going to have good results, right? But if you had a team of doctors that wanted to save somebody's life, that's probably the team you want, right? So these two teams, like you said, they're very different. And I classify them a little differently than you do. Fantastic Four to me are a family unit. They've known each other, like you said before. Two of them are blood related, but really all four of them form the matrix of a family. They've been there no matter how hard things go and how things get. They may separate for a while, but there's that bond that always brings them back together, right? And the X-Men were really students of a school. That was the original dynamic, and they had a mentor and that had a vision. He had a dream for the future, and those students represented the culmination of that dream, so that the regular society could see that even though they were different in their abilities, that their goals and that their character is something that other people can see and emulate, and that is the one thing that sort of they had in common, right? Was the character. They wanted the best thing for the world. They wanted the world to be a better place, and that objective supposedly was shared not only by them but by the rest of the world. So very different types of teams for very different dynamics, right? The Fantastic Four, they're not crime fighters. They are essentially a team that tries to bring forth advancements for the world through Reed Richards and his vision of dealing with things with a scientific focus. And then you have Dr. Xavier, who wants to bring more awareness to the world of the commonalities between humanity, whether they're Homo superior or Homo sapien. So two very diverse teams, two very different teams, very diverse teams with different objectives.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. But I find it interesting though, because for the Fantastic Four, they are more organic in their missions, right? Like no one really directs them to anything. Whereas at least in the early stages of X-Men, and by early stages, I mean like the first 30 years, right? You had the X-Men being directed by Professor X. He more or less received missions and told them what to do, and even divided the teams, right? Blue and gold and all that stuff. Whereas the Fantastic Four, their missions and their objectives were often just kind of reactionary, right? Or starting a mission scientifically based and then encountering some adversity. So I even think that they're further separated by how they're put into the line of fire or how they're presented into danger, because they're really quite different in that regard. One is almost a dispatch team, and the other one is they're almost like private citizens just reacting when needed. So
yeah,
I think
that's a good point. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And we got Bake the Snake in the house. Oh no, and Agu Rhythm is here somewhere. Formerly Agu Ramos, and then he found his rhythm. So now he's on. Perry Comic is lurking there. He's got the dual eyes. Those should be a little bit more crossed and with red lines in them if Perry's really here. We got what do you think there, DS? What do you think about these two teams? How do they stack up against each other?
Well, I'll say some things about teams generally that are required for any team to be successful. Number one, and we're talking comic books mostly, but some of this is applicable to life and relationships too. I'm not going to try to get too deep on my first day back But you need a good name. For comic teams, you need a good name. You need something catchy. You need something simple. You need something memorable. And all of the big teams have that. The X-Men. It doesn't necessarily have to have meaning. Fantastic Four is pretty lame as far as meaning compared to X-Men. I mean, the X-Men has a whole history behind the name. Fantastic Four is just four people who are fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Man.
And one of them is named Mr. Fantastic. What's that about?
Mr. Fantastic. Yep.
Yeah, I know, but that's not actually his name. But anyway, I mean, so you need a good name. No,
name.
Yeah. The Avengers, that tells you a little bit about what they do. The Defenders. You know, you get some teams that are smaller that don't have good names. Batman and Robin. It's, you know, the dynamic duo came about because Batman and Robin is a crappy name for a team. So the dynamic duo, yeah, I mean, Batman and Robin. It's like Bub and DS. That's not a team name. So
hey, I buy
yeah,
that.
You need a good name. Number two, you need a common goal. And, you know, some of these teams are crime fighting. Like the Fantastic Four is not crime fighting. They're more cosmic and protecting and advancing. You know, almost a more ephemeral sort of mission.
Well, they're scientific dangers. They
right.
mostly.
Yeah.
Right, right. And the X-Men is more earthly, and they're pretty much fighting, you know, certain villains. And there's the whole mutant tie-in with the X-Men. The Avengers are protecting the Earth against, you know, basically otherworldly villains, some terrestrial villains too. So yeah, you need a common goal. And you'll see a lot of times in these teams when there are problems, it's because the team members disagree on which way they should go. You know, you'll have spats. The X-Men probably have more spats among them than any other team I can think of, honestly. One of particular note to me is like X-Men 101 storyline. You know, some of the X-Men want to bring in what's-his-face to assist with Jean Grey's recovery, and some of them don't, and it causes a little bit of a split. But yeah, so you need a common goal, and whenever that's lacking, you see the team goes through some hardships, so you need a common goal. Another thing you need, and this is an interesting one, you need trust and mutual respect, but you don't have to like each other. You can dislike people on the team, and you see this a lot with the X-Men especially too. Wolverine goes through periods where he's pretty much hated everyone. You know, probably the one he likes the most is probably like Jean Grey, and he's ended up killing her anyway. So not a really likable dude a lot of times, doesn't get along with people, but he trusts people, they trust him, and there's a mutual respect at all times. So those are crucial with teams. I think the Fantastic Four run a little more smoothly than the X-Men over their history. But both show, you know, common goals, mutual respect, and trust among the members, especially when some of them get into trouble or life and death situations, or you have to rely on other team members and put your life in their hands. You need some trust there. And, you know, you need a good leader. Every team has a good leader. Sometimes there's a man behind the scenes or a woman behind the scenes, but there's always a leader. So, you know, Professor X is sort of the upper level leader, but then the X-Men have a leader that changes over time. Fantastic Four has a leader. Avengers has a leader, and that has changed over time. So you need a leader, you know, common goal, respect, trust, and that's pretty much it. I think things you don't need for a successful team is they don't have to like each other. And pretty much if they work together with any number of varying abilities, some have massively huge abilities and some have lesser abilities that amount to virtually nothing other than just being skilled at something in a regular fashion. But as long as they work together and to complement each other and know their strengths and weaknesses, it creates a successful team. And in comic books, the most successful titles are the ones in which those teams, I don't know, it's almost like the writers have written in their life experiences into these teams. And it shows, especially early on in Marvel with guys who lived through like World War II. You know, guys who were in the military, guys who have gone, you know, who were friends with the artists they were working on or stayed on it for a long time. You can see the experiences of someone like Chris Claremont come out when he's doing a long run in a title. So stuff like that is really adds to the team element and the enjoyability for reading these in comic book form. So yeah, that's just some DS typical rambling on the subject there. So that's all I got.
Good points, though. Good, very good
I love it. I love it. Never prepare again. This works out better.
I love winging it. You know, the older I get, the more I find that when you plan things, it never goes as planned. So I feel like just prepare yourself for whatever and just wing it, and it usually will go better than if you try to plan out things. So that's just basically what I do anymore.
That works. It must be working for you, and we appreciate it. But yeah, I totally agree. I think you made some obviously good points, and I agree that it's not just necessarily comic book teams, but a lot of that, you know, you got to have a leader of some kind. And I always kind of look at leadership as a void. You know, if you always have a leader, may not be a good leader, but there's always someone who's making a few extra decisions and pulling the rest of the team along, or necessarily pushing the team along. There's always somebody. And if there isn't a good leader present, then maybe it's a less well-functioning team. You know, the Defenders, they weren't very successful in a lot of stuff that they did. They're kind of a ragtag bunch, right? And we talked about what make good teams, but there's also some teams on the evil side of the coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some evil mutant teams. Well, what makes them a cohesive team? Well, I would think it's their adherence to evil. And as soon as you know that the evil is their only binding agent, and as soon as they stray from that, they end up accidentally on the side of good all the time. You know, they have to refine their evil intent. So I think that helps. You know, you had the evil mutants, and you had, Spider-Man's foes were all brought together by a singular hate for Spider-Man, right? So you got the Sinister Six. None of them were new villains. They were all just people that absolutely hated him. So you have to have a common goal. Is I guess my point. Common goal and leadership.
Well, that's what I said. That's exactly why I said that they need to have a goal or an objective in mind for that team, and that depending on that objective is how a team should be formed. You were talking about the Defenders before,
mm-hmm.
and that's really what we called a non-team, because they had no real formation that would normally a team would have. They didn't have a real leader. They didn't have an objective. They didn't have any kind of protocols. It's just like whenever a situation arose that more than one hero couldn't, manage, they would come together and take care of the situation and then go around their merry way. But they were effective. They were very effective for certain circumstances like that. As long as they all were on the same page, they could defeat the higher echelon like Nebulon, the Headmen, things like that. But as soon as it took, but they didn't have a charter or anything like the Avengers, which were very formulaic, very almost governmental agency like. The Defenders were kind of like a street gang, essentially. Hey, if there's some guy down the street who's messing with my turf, let's get together and kick his what. So that's
I feel like the Defenders.
I
feel like the Defenders was more like a club than a team, because, and from the comic industry standpoint and the Marvel standpoint, I feel like the Defenders was a team they used to showcase off different superheroes all the time, and they always have people coming and going on that team.
Yep.
But from a team standpoint, the fictional characters on the team, it was more like a club. Like, it was just, let's see who shows up at this weekly meeting and we'll go with them. You know what I mean? It was they're so changing all the time. And what that does is from the comic readership, it doesn't allow the team or the title to grow with the same popularity as teams like the X-Men or Fantastic Four or the Avengers, where they've had different members come and go. I mean, X-Men have had a lot of members, but they have core members that are almost always have been there. They have periods of time that are long in the title with the same team. Avengers, same deal. Now, they've had a lot of people come and go also, but they have a core. The Defenders, they sort of have a core, but they have so many different heroes coming and going all the time on that team. To me, it seems more like a club, and it's hard to get any sort of continuity or emotional attachment a lot of times to that title. Now, you might have attachments to some of those characters from other stuff they've been in, but it's really cool stuff. It's good art. It's really good stories in the Defenders. On any single issue you pick up is usually kick-ass. But it's tough to get invested into a title like that where the team is ever changing all the time. It's almost more like a club, I feel like.
I agree. I can see that. And there's some things that are just kind of titles like the Batman family. Like that's not a real team. That's just an association of people who know Batman's identity. Like that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Like that's the gatekeep to that, is you gotta,
Yep.
if you know who Batman really is, you're part of the Batman family. And that changes, over time too, who's in it and who's out of it and who's the current group of people who know that. So I can see that it's not always just a true team, but it's more just an occurrence of people in one space.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. There are those one-shot associations, things like, or very loose associations. And like I said, then you have, teams like. Speaking of that, Macedon asked about the champions, so I put up my champions up here.
Oh yeah,
and that was a weird team based on Los Angeles, and they kind of were like a team for hire, or at least part of their existence was like a team for hire. Although I think they were only hired like once in the whole title. Essentially they just kept taking on villains that have to show up in LA. But regardless of that, it was such a funky title. I mean, it had good promise. You had good characters in there, but like DS was saying, they didn't really like mesh well. They just you had some X-Men, you had the Black Widow, you had the Ghost Rider, Hercules. I mean, there's not a lot a lot of objectives that sort of met together there. It was sort of we're all in the same place. Let's get together.
Yeah, if the team's out on a mission and part of the team's still at like the clubhouse, and you got like Hercules and Ghost Rider hanging out at the clubhouse, and the rest of the team ran out for groceries or something. Man, what kind of conversation are they gonna have? You can't. They'd just sit there in silence for an hour because Hercules and Ghost Rider, they don't go together, man. No. I mean, they're both cool on their own or as parts of other teams or battling in other arenas, but Hercules and Ghost Rider are like polar opposite type. I feel like they don't. I don't know. The cover of Champions 1, has them all on there, and I always feel like Hercules and Ghost Rider have nothing in common. And if they were to interact, they would just like sit in silence. And there's some interaction in the book, but it's a weird. Again, yeah, I agree with you, Roger. It's kind of a weird mix of heroes on it. But the Bronze Age Marvel, they're rocking and rolling in the comic industry, man. They'd throw anything out on the wall and it would stick. And they had good writers and really good artists. And you could throw out something like Defenders and Champions and all this wacky stuff, and it didn't have to be top notch. But the writers and the artists were so invested and so skilled that they could pull it off, even though the teams themselves were, the Defenders and the Champions are not great.
No, not great. Not great as a team dynamic, certainly.
Right.
Not very good at all.
Yeah, they end up failing a lot. Speaking of which, here's one that I wanted to kind of point out, and that is the Legion of Monsters.
Yeah, that's a good one there.
Now,
okay,
is that a team at all? They have a name. They never refer to themselves as the Legion of Monsters. But for our sake, they were a team. But this whole book, if you've ever read it, is a total failure. Like
totally.
It's a complete disaster to have these four guys working together,
I know, but they're so cool together, though. I mean, it's just so cool to see. I really want this to be introduced into the MCU in some way, because it'll breathe life into a failed project that had such promise just from the cover. Like, especially for somebody like me, like that's killer, man. I would love to see them, but it didn't pull it off. It never actually became a title or a team or anything like that. But
not really.
MCU could run with that, and it would be killer.
Yeah, I agree, and they definitely could. What was it? Just that one issue? Well, it was just this one issue, but then they took the idea of the Legion of Monsters and they did kind of fit it back into play later. I think they knocked out Ghost Rider.
They knocked out Ghost Rider. Yeah.
I think he got replaced by Satana, the Devil's daughter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Later on, but the idea just being that it was a combination of supernatural anti-heroes, if you will.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that, and Marvel did this a lot, especially in the early 80s. The way they did it in the early 80s was with limited series. They would try out something new and they would do a 4-issue limited series and then see how reception it was, and then if it was successful. In the 70s, they used Marvel Premiere a lot for that. So they would use the Marvel Premiere as a tryout issue for different ideas, different characters. So, first appearances in there, and they would try them out and see how it worked. And the ones that didn't work, they didn't have to worry about it because it was a one-off. And the ones that did work, they would move them into another title or give them their own title or something like that. So, the Legion of Monsters in that Marvel Premiere is, it's sort of a one-off tryout. And I think it had promise, but it didn't work out, and they didn't really go anywhere with it. But, it's on paper, so it exists. So it's come up from time to time. But I would like to see new life breathed into it now, since from the 70s to now, I feel like the sort of dark supernatural stuff was popular in the 70s and then sort of tailed off and has come back in force in the 2000s. And so I think it would have a good reception now to have a team of dark supernatural type characters, whether they were good or evil. But the Legion of Monsters, I think it would be cool. I think it could be rebooted sort of and would be popular now. The 80s was more fantasy, and there's a lot of other elements in the 80s, but in the 70s you had a lot of like dark supernatural fantasy stuff. And in the 80s it became more of like it was like a cotton candy decade. There wasn't really that much darkness in the 80s, you know what I mean?
Yeah, greed was the only darkness.
Yeah, but for the United States, in the comic industry and Marvel and DC, it was it was pretty cotton candy bubblegum until the late 80s, and it started to take some more serious overtones. But now, you've had a reinvigorated industry into like vampires and supernatural stuff and really dark sci-fi. So I think something like that would be good now if you redid it. Like MCU did a Legion of Monsters tie-in somehow, I think it would work.
Yeah, I agree. And they almost have the groundwork laid, because even though it's Sony, they're going to have a Morbius movie, right?
Yep.
They've already made it, haven't they? They're just waiting to release it.
Yeah.
And they already have Ghost Rider established in a couple of different versions. Then they have, if they continue with the Moon Knight series, surely they're going to work in an appearance of Werewolf by Night. You would have to. Surely you would have to.
Yeah, I agree. You have to.
And then the only one missing would be Man-Thing. And with the recent, well-received but poorly produced Swamp Thing show that tanked the values of House of Secrets all over the country for about a year. Great. Thanks. Yeah, really. Man, you got so excited for that book too. You bought it right. Like it's only going to go up.
Dude, I bought it. I bought a raw. I'll tell you, I paid $1,300 for a raw, and I got an 8.0 on it, 8.0 off white to white for $1,300. So I'm like, hell yeah, things selling for like $2,500, and then not no more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like 1,700 or 18 maybe, but ever since I bought it, it's nothing but tanked because of that freaking series.
You speculators, I tell you, you're a separate breed.
Speculators, that's a solid pick. You just got to wait for it to come, for the economy to come back around.
Hello, solid pick, and it went down.
Well, it was a solid pick.
Dude, that is speculation, not that. Look, if you're talking about somebody who bought stock or something, that's different.
No,
that is
Roger,
speculation. 100%. 100%.
These speculators, the people who are truly speculating, have no idea what the future value of this book is going to be, and they're buying based on a hunch or some sort of schematic premise. But that's not the case. DS bought the right book at the wrong time at the wrong price.
Yeah, but you know what? All right, that's a little harsh, Bub, because I got it. I got it under fair market value, and
At the time.
still under fair market value, but the fair market value is tanked. But it's also a book that is the top bronze horror book, so it's part of my PC.
Yeah.
But yes, I want it to go up in value because I can't hold books forever. I like to sell them and make profits and get bigger stuff. But I'm happy holding that one because I love that book and I'm a bronze horror collector and I got an 8.0. It's good. But from the investment standpoint, it sucks that when you buy something and it's selling at 2,500 and then a year and a half later it's selling at 1,700. Yeah, that sucks. But I'm not in a rush to sell it regardless. But yeah, I would much rather see it go to 3,000 than 1,700. But whatever, I'm keeping it for now. But someday I will sell it, and I would like to see it go up.
But it's still up over what you paid for it, right?
Yeah, I mean it's still up. I mean I'm still in the money on it, but I don't plan on selling it anytime soon. So I'm not like checking GPA sales for HOS 92 every day, but I check it every month. You know what I mean? But if it goes up,
keeping an eye on it, right?
You generally do well regardless. So, I mean, for you, you're not really taking that big of a risk because you know the trends and how they go and what price to get it, that you don't really lose a lot of money regardless. So
yeah, that one falls into my long-term investment category. I have flips, I have short-term investments, and I have long-term investments. The flips I intend to get cheap and flip them as quick as possible for a profit, as much as possible, and just crank them out. And then the short-term investments are books that I feel like have good potential to go up, and I can get them at a really good deal. And I don't mind holding it for a while, but I'm looking to sell it like within a year. And then I have long-term investments like this one. I have no intention of selling this anytime soon, but someday I will, and I want it to have value. So it's a long-term investment.
That's.
But everything's for sale with me for the right price. If somebody offered me enough, I would sell this. But nobody's going to offer me what I would take for that. So I'm fine with it. This is a good investment.
It's a beautiful book too, and you get the additional honor of you've bought your way into ownership of that book, and no one can take that away from you. Like there's a couple of books that I've sold in the past where I'm like, you know what? Yes, I don't own this book anymore. I used to own this book, but I know that I own the book. So I can't, that book passed through my hands. I had the feeling it was in my PC, if you want to call it that, for a while. And now it's gone to a better home, to someone who is willing, who loved the book so much more than I did, that they were willing to pay, 1,000 times more than I paid for it. Take it, just take it. And it's gone to a good home, and I can say I own that book, and then I can move on with myself and take that money and spend it however I want to on something that means that much to me, So I'm good with it.
Yeah, I don't keep, most of the books that pass through my hands, I don't keep them very long. I have a minority of books that I actually keep for any respectable period of time. But yeah, there is something to be said for having owned it. Just pick like, I don't know, ASM3. I had a 4.5 white page ASM3. I have no intention of keeping it, and I will probably not get another one anytime soon, whatever. But it's cool. I had an ASM3. So, in the comic hobby and in the game and in the community, I can be like, yeah, I had that book. Hey, I had that book. You know what I mean? So it's cool to have had it. You don't always have to just hold things forever for me. If you have them and then get rid of them, there's still a value that you had it, and it adds to the richness of you as a collector for having had certain things, even if you don't keep them. This is how I feel about it, you know what I mean? And maybe I'm just rationalizing because I sell everything, but for me, I'm working on an ASM run, and I currently have 0 issues, but I've had a 3, I've had a 4, I've had a 8, I've had 11, a 12, and I had a 15. So I'm working on a 20. So I have had a nice ASM run, and I'm working on filling in the holes. And when I get them, I'll fill in the hole and I'll sell it. And at some point, I'll complete my 1 to 20 ASM run, and I'll have fun.
And have none of them to show. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I'll have nothing to show for it, but I will be able to say that at one point I owned every ASM from 1 to 20. Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, I'm with you.
People can say that. How many people can say that?
Can we call that the non-contemporaneous collection?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's still me owning them. It's just in different periods of time.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Oh boy. Wow.
that
Yeah.
can't
I
be
love
good.
DS because he's got that knack for convincing me of things that I would never do,
Good.
so that's why I love DS because he's just that
Well,
good
look,
at
if you
his
want to get
arguments.
into like a quantum time discussion where past, future, and present all exist contemporaneously, then I currently have those issues right now. It's just a past me at different periods, different versions of me in the past have those, but it's all occurring at once. They're all existing in the same plane. So there you go.
Yes, and I almost made time travel because I'm aware of your fascination with it. I almost made time travel the subject of tonight, and I thought I better ease you into the bathwater, one toe at a time.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well,
Well,
considering that I went to like 3 comic shops this weekend, and I touched several books, like tons of books. I'm almost done with my X-Men run from 1 to 584 or whatever the heck it is. I'm so close.
544, I think. Yeah.
544 because I've touched almost every book in that run. So I'm going to call that done. What do you guys think? Close enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
No ownership, just being in the presence of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just typed a comment in the chat that responded to somebody that was saying something, but yeah, when I scroll through my IG feed, I have all pictures of books that I don't presently physically have, but they're on my IG. So I still have a record of them and sort of a gallery of what I've owned. I just don't have them currently, but I don't delete the pictures anymore. I keep them. And so that's a record of what I've owned, and it's like my collection. And they're not all currently in my hands, but that's my collection. And then some of them have long since gone, but I still scroll through and enjoy it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that ASM3. That was a nice copy.
Well, do you ever mentally upgrade too? Like, do you look at, like, I've had this book, but I had it in a 3 and I sold it, and now I have it in a 5.
Yeah,
I
do that, and resellers and flippers will get it because I do. I'll be like, man, I've never had a nice copy of that book. The best I had was a 2.0. And then when you get another copy that's better, you're like, this is the best copy I've ever had of it. And then you sell it, and then somebody else will get it, and you're like, man, that's a nice copy. I once had a 6.5 of that. And yeah, it's definitely something that counts. And people who sell a lot of books or flip a lot of books or resell or whatever get it because they do the same thing. And I'll be like, oh man, that's even better than I used to have a 5.0. That's even better than mine. Yeah, same deal. That definitely counts. Mental upgrading counts for sure.
Yeah. I just wondered because I kind of do that as well. And sometimes my memory fails me. Like when I'm in a shop and I'm thinking, is this an upgrade to the book that I have? Is it an upgrade to a book that I've sold? What's the first appearance of Silver Age Vision? I always forget the number in that book.
Avengers 57.
57.
All right. So Avengers 57 was the first book that I ever, the first big book, if you will, that I ever bought, cleaned, pressed, and flipped. Right. Mm-hmm. And I traded it for some Golden Age Wallywood art. So I'm definitely not upset. Right. I felt like I got the better end of that deal, and I almost doubled its value in trade. But I always look at that book now, and I every time I see one for sale, I think, is it an upgrade to the one that I had? And if it is, am I buying it for a comparable deal like I got the first one? Or am I just now buying this book at full price like some kind of chump? So that's where I'm at. Like I struggle with it because I was starting to forget what the original one looked like. And the price has gone up since then too for that book. It's been on the rise again.
Well, look, it's about the hobby mainly. If you boil it down, it doesn't matter what you own or how many books you have or what you like or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're all in the same boat. We all love comics. But what it boils down to is, what are your goals and what are your accomplishments, and how are they measured by you personally and subjectively? And if you have owned a book, that was an accomplishment that you have achieved. and that can never be taken away from you. You don't have to hold the book forever to prove that you accomplished it. You know, I bought a Hulk 181, 8.5 white pages. Okay, I had it for 6 months and I sold it. That was an accomplishment. I really wanted a high grade, nice white page Hulk 181. I had an 8.5 white page Hulk 181. That's an accomplishment that can never be taken away from me. The book can be taken away from me, which it was at a con by a dealer who gave me my asking price, and then I bought Golden Age. But you know, I had that. I accomplished it. I scored it. I hustled my way up to get one, and yeah, I'm proud to be able to say that I had an 8.5 white page Hulk 181. That was an accomplishment. You can accomplish your goals and then move on to other things, and it doesn't discount your previous accomplishments. You're building a record of success in the hobby, and you don't have to keep the material things, which are the least important based on, you know, your satisfaction in the hobby and your fun and your accomplishments is more important than, you know, a stack of paper and a slab. So I don't keep them all because it's the challenge of moving on to a new thing and meeting new goals and the accomplishment. And that's what gives me pleasure. And it's based around these books, of course. But I don't need to hold the book to be proud of my accomplishments. And that's just, you know, how I am. So yeah, I will look at an ASM 3 next time and I'll think, ooh, this is an upgrade over my current memory ASM 3. And, you know, yeah, I'll be able to say I upgraded, even got a better copy, even after I got the 4.5. So that's how it works for me.
I'm with you. I think that for me, I like to still own the book. For most of them. For most of them, I like to still own the book. But I totally understand what you're saying. And I just wonder sometimes if I'm really wired for that, because I think that would have to be. So like when you look at my book, it's a 5.5 qualified. So it would have never as good as a book that you used to have, right? The book that you did have. Your book far surpassed this one.
Well, I mean, far surpassed is you know, in monetary value, yes. But if your all-time favorite character of all time is Wolverine, which yours is, and you have a book that completely satisfies you for the first appearance of your favorite character, and you own it as your absolute grail, then is that better than an 8.5 white page that meant not so much to me that I sold in 6 months? I mean, the value-wise, mine blew yours out of the water, but so what? That's just money. You met your goal. I haven't met my goal. I don't have my version of that. I've never had it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, it's all subjective. It's how you look at it. And yes, it does take some rewiring because you have to, if you get emotionally attached and you can't get rid of things, you can't have as many new things. So you have to be able to take the risk and take the leap of faith that you will get something that you love even more by getting rid of stuff that you currently love a lot. And it's very difficult to get rid of something that you love with the hopes and the faith that you will get something you love even more by doing that. But if you take the risk and it works out, every time it works out, it reinforces into you that it can work. And then after a while, you get very attached to books, but you can move them because you know there's other stuff that you have yet to discover an attachment to that you can get. So, yeah, it's not for lack of passion or love for the hobby or the books that I sell stuff. That has nothing to do with it. I love it as much as anybody. I just love them sort of differently. So I don't know. That's just, you know, it's changed for me. I mean, you guys have known me since I've pretty much close to when I got back in the hobby, maybe a couple years in. But yeah, I've changed significantly since then, and my passion has done nothing but get stronger. So.
Yeah, and I remember when you were still chasing superhero books and building that collection, and that's all pretty much decimated now and churned into a completely different passion, you know, which I'm not saying that was a brand new passion and that you had to go from one to the other, but financially it made sense to take the investment that you had in one and reinvest it in the other as opposed to trying to keep both going. Yeah,
it's easier to do when you have two distinct genres where you have one category that you're in and you make a decision internally that you want to move to another category. It makes it much easier to separate yourself from the books in the prior category. But if you're on superheroes and you're just moving up to bigger superheroes, it's tougher to get rid of superhero stuff because you're still in that category. But I was wanting to transition over to Golden Age stuff anyway, so it made it easier to separate and detach myself from the superhero stuff. At which point I had built up a store of quality stuff that had really gone up in value. I had 9/8s. I was like Matt, I had 9/8s of air. I had the ASM 238 9/8. I had, the whole quantity 1 at 8.5 weight pages. I had all the copper keys in 9/8 weight. I had ASM 129 at 8.5 weight pages. Yeah, I mean, I had some that were even considered rare for that, like an ASM 301. I think it was a newsstand even in 9.8. I bought all these along the way, and then when I was ready to move on, they were worth a ton of money. I mean, I got like $1,500 for my ASM 301. And it's not even a key. It's not even an original cover. It just has a white background, and it's a ripoff of the previous issue. And it's not a key at all. $1,500? You kidding me? Yeah, all day.
But to someone that may have been their grail for whatever reason,
the first comic they ever picked up or something.
Off the rack. Who knows? Yeah. You never know what makes a book.
Those personal grails. Every comic could be a personal grail.
So. Yeah, Roger's entire collection is made up of books that are probably not going to be most other people's personal grails, and yet he keeps them all.
Like my comics, I've had some of them almost 50 years. So
did you say 50?
50, yes. 50, wow. Yes. I'm 56, and I bought some of my comics when I was 8. So yeah, do the math. A couple of years, those things will be, pretty much senior citizens themselves,
Yeah, and if I had done it like Roger, if I had done it like you, I might be a totally different collector, because I feel like probably many collectors feel like this, probably most of them do, that have gotten back into the hobby after really long breaks. We're way behind the 8 ball, and we all want that time machine to go back and do what you did. Just start when we were 5 and never stopped, you know what I mean? And just pick everything up. And then, yeah, maybe I would just have so much, and all the stuff I want would just keep adding slowly. But when you get back in the hobby and all you have is a long box of 90s stuff from when you were younger, now I don't have 50 more years left to start doing that. You know what I mean? I got to get shit done now. So,
and here we are back in the time machine, because what DS isn't really saying, which is the truth, is that he doesn't want to go back to the first day he started collecting. He wants to go back about 38 years prior to that, and start picking up these books off the rack for 12 cents a piece. That's really what he wants to do.
I have fantasies where I go back to when I'm 5, and I ask my dad to take me to a comic book show, and I ask him to loan me, like, to buy me my Christmas present now and buy me a Hulk 181 in like 1979. And then just hold it. Do you know what I mean? That's what I would do. Yeah, I would go back to like, 79, 78, 80, and just start buying all these huge books at shows. And especially Golden Age, no matter how rare it is, if I started 19, I got 40 years to find the book now before it's going to go up in value. I got plenty of time. I don't even have to see it for the next 5 years. It's not even a rush. And Heritage won't even be around for another 30 years or 20 years or 40 years. Whatever. And I don't have, there's not even an internet for 15 more years. So yeah, I'll be golden, man. I have a huge head start.
DS, I remember I went to a show back in 1980, and there was an Amazing Fantasy 15 there. He wanted $300 for it, which at the time was obscene. Absolutely. Yeah. It was like, everybody was like, this was a fine copy of this Amazing Fantasy 15. If I had $300 and I bought that comic at that point, I would like multiply it by thousands at this point, But again, it's all because of if you have foreknowledge, you are the most powerful man in existence, because you already know what's going to happen. You already know, what you have to do to get to where you want to at this point in time. So we all have that kind of, hope that, that we had make those decisions at the time. But how many, for every Bill Gates, there are billions of, who's the guy who lost everything not long ago? Well, that guy,
Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes.
MC Hammer. There's MC Hammer.
MC Hammer.
Right. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, that, when I think of the decisions I've made in my life, and I think half of them have been poor and half of them have been better than good, But if you could make just a few percentage points toward that good category, man, you'd be living high on the horse, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I could have legitimately done, and is go back to like 1988 when I was already going to the comic shop and just go around for like the next year or so and buy every ASM 300 I could find and just fill long boxes with ASM 300s and then just sit on them for 40 years. And then you got like $1 million for real. I mean, if you could fit 250, let's just use short boxes, 100 of them, and we'll say average grade, if you get good ones, like say 9.4, and you got like 100 of them in a box. You know, what are they selling for a 9.4? $400. So that's what, 40 grand per box. You could fill boxes with that. You know what I mean? If you get some 9.8s in there too that are worth $2 grand, you could have a full long box of 9.8s. You know, $2 grand.
Well, you know, you could also have a little bit of
$1 million.
You could also have a little bit of parallax going on there. You might be able to additionally skew the market in your favor by holding on to what essentially would be file copies of this book, therefore making all the books more rare because people can't find them for some reason. Gee, like no book in the state of Virginia.
No Maryland. Maryland is bereft of ASM 300s. They're all in BS's garage.
You can't get one. And he spends all his days driving out to neighboring places. He calls shops, gives them money over the phone. What did he have back then? Western Union. He sends them.
They still have those today, but.
Yeah, well, you know, nobody's using them.
Well, you could do like that with like TMNT1 that only had like what 5,000 copies or something.
There you go,
3,000.
I think. Serious in that supply chain because you could pick up a couple hundred of those if you started right in 1985 and just went right after those only exclusively. You could pick up hundreds of copies of that. You could easily dent that supply chain.
If you knew where they were distributed, because there was very spotty in some areas. I know that in Florida, I did see one, but they were spotty. Some comic shops only had 2 or 3 copies. So.
Yeah, saying no, you can't flood the market. It had to be a long-term gain. I would only sell one after I would only put one for sale after I sold one. Just out there. You know, 10 at a time.
Trickle it out. Yeah.
Exactly. Only after the price of these things skyrocket and people are clamoring for them.
There's a Golden Age collector, and you guys can check out on Instagram. The account name is Anna's Love is Here. It's all one word. Anna's Love is Here. Golden Age collector, her and her husband. And they have been collecting like what we're talking about for decades, and rare Golden Age stuff that's impossible to find. And they don't ever sell anything. They just pick up all the time. They've seen it over the last decades, rare books, and they have multiple copies of Ghosts. And they have virtually every Golden Age book you can think of in multiple, some are like 10 copies of like super rare stuff, where there's probably only, 30 or 40 or 50 copies out there. They've got half of them and they don't sell, and they just keep them all. But they've done this, and they've been doing it for decades. And they have an amazing collection of Golden Age stuff, super, super rare stuff that you might not see for years. Well, if you go back 25 or 30 years, you'll still see several of them, and they just bought them every time they saw them. And at the time, nobody wanted any of these things. They were dirt cheap at cons and shows and whatever at shops that they turned up, and they were just dirt cheap because nobody cared about that stuff.
Look at this! Look at this paradox that Gray Man has introduced. He's throwing a monkey in your wrench. So if you bought too many TMNT1, you might change history and the book goes nowhere. Now, to expand upon that, for those of you who are 3 beers deep or a bag of Cheetos and feeling lethargic, basically what he's saying is what if the book is unable to reach phenomena status because fewer people, or more importantly, that one all-important person in history that needed to read it to then be able to, license it and make a big deal out of it. If that person doesn't come across the book because you went, hog wild and bought up half the available issues, then maybe that book goes nowhere and it's just another $1 book someday. So that's something to consider.
Well, people always tell me
you're good on Spider-Man, by the way, but on TMNT one,
that's the butterfly effect right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
People tell me when I say, man, I wish this pre-code horror book was more available. I wish there were more out there so I could get a nice one. And then usually the response is, yeah, but if they were, it wouldn't have the rarity and it wouldn't be so sought after, so you wouldn't want it anymore. It's like, a catch-22 sort of paradox. It makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. But yeah, the bottom line, coming back full circle, is that what I do now is to catch up for lost time, and it's the lost time that Roger didn't have. So I don't have the benefit of having the foresight and the uninterrupted love of comics that he had to do that. So, so I do other things to try to catch up, and I'll never be able to catch up to you, Roger. I'll never catch up to you, but I'm having fun trying. So
you know what else you do have though?
You don't want to.
Yeah, you've got space. Roger sleeps on a bed made of long boxes. I mean, that's
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I do have a lot of space. I mean, I have no space and I have a lot of space. So yeah, that's true. I've got 3 short boxes on the floor with slabs in them, and that's it. You know what I mean? And when I get a CGC package back, it's always exciting, but it like doubles my amount of books, and I run into space issues when I get a submission back. That's how few books I have. It's like a small town having a massive festival, and during the festival, the population of the town doubles. That's every CGC submission for me. When it comes back, I'm like, crap, where am I going to put this? So, yeah.
Wow. It's true. It's true. And I'm at that point. I just got a box in today and it had 7 slabs in it. Where the hell am I going to put these things? I'm at max capacity. But the good news is we're doing an addition to the house.
Oh, cool.
We've got an addition. We've got contractors running through the house trying to find things and hopefully get us a price we can all agree on. And the addition is not going to be in my comic room. So that's the sad part. But I have skillfully created a floor plan that creates extra space for my wife. Ooh. And so all her things in here will go in there. And then by the vacuum that is created in my comic room, I will gain quite a bit of space. And by building her a grand, giant closet, then I get to use her old closet, lucky me. And then I get to take the closet that's in my comic room, which currently holds things like DS hates pants. And I get to redesign it and use it for additional storage and display. So things are looking up for the kid. That's all.
You're quite wily, and I will say that you gain a lot of advantage in your relationship in your life there through attrition, and I give you a lot of credit for that. Most of us, we just reach an agreement with our significant others, and they're gracious enough to give us that. You fight a war of attrition, and slowly. It's like a World War I in the trenches. You slowly gain more territory over time, and I love it. Good style, man, and it works.
When they run out of food and they run out of ammunition, you don't have to put much effort to get them out of the foxhole. And that's what Bub is doing. Essentially, he's biding his time. Oh yeah, honey, you're right. An addition is a good idea. Here, let's make it in your side of the house. And that way you can take your stuff that we share and put it in your own space.
Exactly.
Without saying the other side of the coin,
Well, to your point, I call it the 180 effect. As the price of 181 goes up, it pulls with it the status of 180, right?
Right.
It drags it up by its hair all the way up. 181's doing all the work, but 180 is taking the sweet ride to the top.
Yeah, that's on the trailer. 180's on the trailer.
Yeah, well, my wife's the Hulk 181. I'm the Hulk 180.
You're the Hulk 180.
All I gotta do is clear space up here for her to keep ascending, and she'll have to pull me up along the way.
Yeah, I can see that. He tells her all the time, "No, I'm the cameo, honey. I'm the cameo." And then to all his friends, he's like, "No way, I'm the first appearance." She's not. But you're first
coin. Flip the cameo.
He's like, hey guys, she thinks I'm the cameo. Look, I got a full panel and I talk. I'm real first appearance. I pulled the wool over her eyes.
Oh man.
Well,
man.
I hate to say it, but we haven't had an appearance by the sweet Miss Linda Carter tonight. I'm sorry to everyone who did not donate $2 to the super chat. I apologize. Who usually does that? Bill? Bill's done it before.
Yeah.
Rob's done
he
it
was here.
before.
Yeah.
We've had a few people that are usually, so I hate to say that we've got to this point, but no, she's pulling me by the hair. But we didn't make it to see Linda in her full regalia. But I do want to thank everybody for coming by and saying hello and being part of this ragtag bunch of miscreants we have going on here tonight.
That's our team, the ragtag bunch of miscreants.
Oh, right. Yes, team books. Teams are good. Good teams are headed. They have leaders, common goals, personalities that either mesh or don't mesh, and they can be situational or they can be purposeful in nature and in their creation. Does that get it all?
That's a good recap.
Yeah.
Or go back and see the first half hour of the show, and it actually was about teams.
Yes.
Well, I don't know what you all have been doing for show format lately, but I absolutely love tonight. I think it worked out great. We covered everything I wanted to cover, and we kept Bob in line. And so, yeah, successful first day back. I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I agree, DS. I think he was tonight. He was, more, shall we say, if we were talking political, he was more middle of the road, not extremes on any side.
Security, as you know, since I'm just back, he doesn't want to scare me right away again. So he's luring me in slowly, and before he lays the hammer down, in probably 3 or 4 shows from now, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm ready for
it. It's coming.
Oh, it doesn't bother me a bit. Take all the time you'd like. Slip into that bath water. Roger will make room. He's good about that. And you guys can just get nice and comfortable before we get into the real hard stuff. There we go. So I want to thank everyone, especially Alex Big Blue, who's the big winner for tonight, showed up at the end.
Probably the smartest one of all.
Yeah. Go back and watch the first half hour, DS says, if you're looking for this chat topic. And glad to have you all here. I think, yes, that's a reacher, not a reach arounder there, Chris. We're worried about him. Glad you could all make it. Thanks again. Look, Roger's looking for his most shiny book. Why don't you pull out that X-Men you had over there a while ago?
X-Men, yeah, that X-Men might do it, yeah. Hey, let me ask you one question, right? The Avengers, right? Why are they called the Avengers?
Because they're avenging an Earth they couldn't save before it needed avenging.
The only time I've ever heard of them avenging is in this comic, where they actually do put down the Masters of Evil because of what they did to Hercules and to Jarvis. But otherwise, they don't avenge anything.
And what number is that?
That's 275, but it's a storyline that runs through the 270s. There, look what it says here, right? Look what it says here, bub.
It says Avengers. You guys, I don't think you guys bumped your videos up from 480 to 720. Did you guys know you could do that? They're not called the Avengers for nothing.
For nothing. This is the one time they're actually avenging something.
They ain't called the Avengers for nothing.
The Masters of Evil beat them, to near death, and now they're going.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they should switch with the Punisher, and he can be the Avenger, and they can be the Punishers.
I like that.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Yeah, that's not.
I like that. That's a good one.
Or maybe they should be more like the reactors, is what I would call them. The reactors, because it's like when something happens, here comes in the strike squad to take care of it.
Right.
They usually don't avenge much of anything. That's on my point.
Yeah, the Punisher is an Avenger because his whole mindset is based on avenging. Everything he does is towards the goal of going after the types of people that wronged him basically and destroyed his family and his life. And so he is a true Avenger.
He is.
Yeah, they are not. So
yeah, he's avenging for what happened to him personally. But except for a few instances, the Avengers never really avenge. At least the Defenders defend, but the Avengers rarely avenge.
Yeah, I don't know if the champions really have ever been champions of anything.
No.
I don't think they've ever won any contests.
Champions of insignificance, maybe?
They didn't even win their own contest. The Contest of Champions. They didn't even win that.
Oh my gosh.
You're right.
You guys
They weren't
are
even
killing-
in it.
Yeah, I mean, how do you not show up to your own contest?
Good point. Man. Good point. Man. Good point.
Well,
these
thanks
are all
for
things that
guys.
we should ponder. You're right. We should ponder this.
We should have pondered it for the last hour. You guys are coming here trying to
Well,
bring
yeah.
it back on topic for the last 2 seconds.
A house of secrets.
Somebody
in this,
opened
you
the
know,
time
come on.
travel can of worms, and that was it for me. So
Yeah.
you mentioned time
Borders,
travel.
yeah.
Hey, we're going down that rabbit hole.
I got you. Well, we'll try and shift it back into high. Oh, wait a minute. Shift it. Oh, look.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. There she is.
Oh, but guess what? No parking tonight because I parked the dog previous to the show. So no parking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll leave all of you to just guess what that means. Well, we thank you for your pre-parking.
Yeah. Yeah. I hit the meter before the show, essentially. So.
Nice. I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're at the end of our run here.
Oh boy.
Oh, what? Wait, what's that? Oh, Roger's got to knock at the door. He's got to go.
Hi, Liz.
There she is. Liz is here for you, Roger. All right, we'll leave you to it, buddy. And we'll catch you next time on the No Faces Comic Chat. DS wants to tell you to do your homework. Roger wants to tell you to be blessed and be back, but definitely do your homework first before you come back because we're not taking late entries. And I'm going to tell you to read a comic and remember to not apologize for the glare. We'll catch you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you guys.
See y'all later.
Bye, all.